Welcome to Childcare Conversations, the podcast where early childhood leaders like you get real-world strategies, honest talk, and a whole lot of support. Whether you're running one center or many, we're here to help you lead with confidence and clarity. This episode is brought to you by this quarter's sponsor, Playground, the all-in-one childcare management software. We're all about managing monkeys and saving you time at your center. With this platform, you can. We're proud to partner with a team that's as committed to your success as we are. Learn more at tryplayground.com. Now, let's get into today's conversation, one we think you're really going to love.
Hey, we're back. We told you we'd be back. Okay. So
Your first big impersonation. What's about that?
I don't know. Apparently it's just something that happened this morning. Anyway, we are going to talk about the other issue that we heard all across the country over the course of the last few months, which is I'm losing kids in my program to universal pre-K. Now, we have met directors and owners across the country who haven't lost a single kid to free childcare.
Wait, were those people in places where universal pre-K exists?
Yes, and some of them were even places where universal pre-K has been there for quite a while. So, one of their tips, before we get into a lot of the other stuff, is building that relationship with your parents on day one and always bragging about the fact that your kids get this small ratio environment. They talk a lot and have always talked a lot about the benefit of their program for the children specifically. So they were very specific to the parent about their child. They weren't making generalizations, and they took the time and invested in that parent relationship.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter where the pre-K is happening in your community. If there's universal pre-K, when people think about that, they usually think about it happening at the public school. And if the parents are going to look at taking their kids from your program where they have to pay something and taking them to the public school, here's the thing. Not all states is that free at the public school. So make sure you know about that. And if it is free in your state, what are the differences in the playgrounds, the ratios, the schedules, the types of activities? You need to know your competition. It doesn't matter whether you are selling services like childcare or services like, I don't know, oil changes, right? It is a service that we're providing. And if you don't know anything about what the other companies are doing when they're changing somebody's oil, you don't know that the company down the road is also vacuuming the inside of the car and is dusting. Because I don't know where the dust comes from in my car, but my gosh, that dashboard, I will go to the place that is going to wipe down my dashboard and the inside of my windshield. I'm going to go there even if I have to pay twice as much money. I'm going to go at least every other time to that one than the one that just changes the oil.
Okay, so that's a whole separate episode. So
Well,
right
not
now,
really, because what you offer at your childcare center is much more that customized care where you're vacuuming and you're wiping down the dashboard than at the school where they're like, we have 1,000 children. Your kid will show up. Your kid will come home to you at the end of the day. Don't be asking for us to do 27 different check-ins during the day. We're at your childcare center. You've got that parent communication app, and you know you have parents who, if you don't communicate with them 5 times in the day, they're calling you. When they go to public pre-K, you dropped them off, you pick them up. That's the communication on the average day in public pre-K.
yeah. And so when Carrie talked about getting to know the difference, again, it's not even on a state level. So make sure you know what your school district and neighboring school districts are doing. Because in some states, they have great public-private partnerships. So the private programs like yours are actually working with the school districts and filling that void. So they get paid by the school district, not necessarily by the parent. And yes, there's some curriculum component where they have say.
and
However, it's
paperwork.
yeah, so it's full day care though, and you get the opportunity to provide that after school care, and all the child does is walk across the hallway. So definitely make sure, because in Georgia, parts of Texas, we've got some states that are really figuring out what that private public partnership looks like. And then you've got other states that really haven't figured it out. And the school districts go, oh, I want, I want, I want. And so this is a great time also, Carrie, for folks to make a big deal out of the training that your staff have, and that your staff are trained for 3-year-olds, not 6-year-olds, and that your staff will help that child go to the bathroom and learn all the necessary skills. If you have a 4-year-old who has an issue potty learning, or just because they're stressed out or they're sick, um, in a public school, basically, parent, you get called to come get your kid because the teacher doesn't do that.
Yeah. But it's also I mean, when you talked about staff training, I think about my friends who work in school districts, both in early childhood and in elementary, middle school, high school, and they go to these professional development days where it is an all school professional development day for the elementary school. So they're trying to offer
Mm.
stuff for teachers teaching 3-year-olds all the way through people teaching 12-year-olds. That is a 9-year age span from, I don't know how to speak in past tense, to, I might get pregnant. That is a huge range of development, and being in a session in one room for 4 hours that is supposed to give you something that is useful for your classroom over those 9 years, I think is impossible. We're
Well, it's
good at
probably why
professional
they all get
development.
time management.
Yeah. I mean, you and I are good at professional development, but I don't think we could do a session for 4 hours that hits teachers doing pre-K through 5th or 6th grade.
I mean, it's why a lot of them end up with parent communication, and they end up with time management, and they end up with, basically how to do paperwork and how to do billboards or bulletin
Uh,
boards. I mean,
yeah,
there's,
of course.
I
And
like billboards.
and talking about self-care while also saying, "I need you to take on 50 additional responsibilities." But knowing talk to your friends, or go make friends with elementary school teachers and find out what their PD is like, and is any of it relevant to somebody teaching a child who can't conjugate verbs? Like, can, can we get there?
I think the other thing that's great, because if you've ever listened to any of our marketing workshops, we have always told folks to make sure you know your local elementary school secretaries. Get to know those teachers. If you are a pre-K or a school readiness program, know what those kindergarten teachers want to see those kids to be able to do. Because if school readiness in your school district is really about those kids learning how to play together, how to do things together, or how to do things independently, that's way more important to a lot of those kindergarten teachers than whether or not your child knows how to hold a pencil. And so it's worth knowing in the elementary school that the kids in your program are going to go to, what they're looking for. So if a lot of the kids end up in the local private school or charter school or public elementary school, because there's all different types of elementary schools, have those conversations with those teachers, because it's really, really important, because you want to ask the questions again, what makes you different, right? And so, like we were just talking about self-care, well, the kid has to be able to take care of themselves, right? And so being able to have that discussion with a one-on-one with a parent about, you know really, Johnny needs to know how to tie his shoes by himself, because when he goes to, whether it's pre-K or kindergarten, whatever he's going to go to the elementary school, he has to be able to do his own shoes. Yes, he has to be able to wipe his own bottom. The teacher is not going to wipe it for him, even if he is 4 and he's at the public pre-K. So if this is an issue you guys are having still in the classroom or at home, he may not be ready to go to that. And I know that, money's an issue for you. So how can we have that difficult conversation with the parents? Carrie, what's a
And
great way for a director to help the parents with that difficult conversation. Nobody likes having that conversation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you might also have issues where you have kids who are having behavior problems because they had been at home or they'd been at grandma's and they come into your program where now they're in a classroom with 15 other kids. And then they're going, cool, in 3 months, my kid's going to go to public pre-K. Well, if they can't handle 16 kids in a classroom, what are they going to do with whatever the size of classroom is at your public pre-K? Because I know in my city, that's 25 to 28 kids in the pre-K with
Okay,
one teacher.
so how do we
And
have
so
that conversation with the parents? I mean, you've got kids who just are not developmentally ready, whether it's behavior, being able to wipe their own backside, you know, what do we
being able
do?
to communicate their needs. They have to be able to communicate their needs. They have to be able to advocate for themselves because if you're in a classroom with 25, with one or maybe two teachers, but again, my school district is having financial issues and they've eliminated most para positions, which para in childcare speak is assistant. So, right. In school districts, they call them paras when there's another person in the classroom other than the teacher. We call them assistants, right? But in the school district, they call them paras, and they're eliminating those positions left, right, and center to make the budgets work. And so, if you're a teacher in a pre-K classroom with 25 kids with no assistant, and a kid cannot advocate for themselves, they're going to have problems. They're going to get, they're going to have
But
some
even if they
social issues.
can, again, even if they can, it's one teacher to 25 kids.
Yeah.
So I'm a director. I hate confrontation. I'm watching this child. My teacher and I are both stressed out about this child going to public school. How can we have this conversation with the parents? What are some tips that we should do? What notes should we take? How do we do this and the parent not thinking that we just want to keep their kid for the money?
I mean, that is part of it, though.
Yeah.
Um, But I think it's having the conversation from the time the child enrolls about how wonderful it is that, they can work until 6 o'clock and pick up between 6 and 6:30. I know that that's got to have been a load off your mind to not have to come pick your kid up at 3 o'clock every day. And, your child is doing so well in small group work because we have 2 or 3 teachers in the classroom and we only have 16 kids, you know, throughout the conversations, throughout the communication in the parent communication app, talking about what makes you different from the time you start and highlighting that you're getting ready for the summer program when all the kids who left for public pre-K last fall are going to be back at your program in the summer. I think this is actually a good time of year because you're probably open a lot more from now to the end of the year or now through the middle of January than the public school is. And making a big deal about the fact that you are open, you're only closed X many days, and putting on the calendar that is in your parent communication app. Nobody's talked about this, and I think this is brilliant. Having the calendar that's in your parent communication app have an overlay of the school district calendar on yours so that they can see how many more days they would be having to have to take off work or find alternative childcare, and that you only have 10 spots in your school age program on those days when you're open and, the school agers would come in because you can't take every kid who graduates from your program to go to public pre-K. You can't take all of them every random Monday and random Thursday that the school
Well,
district is closed.
especially because you used a phrase that in a lot of areas is not, I mean, it's accurate, but it's also not really, which is we called them the school agers. And really, your 3s and 4s that are in public pre-K and that are not in kindergarten are really not your school agers. They are still under state ratios for childcare at a much lower rate than the school age 5 to 11-year-old in most schools in most states. So remember that. So right now, believe it or not, December, January, February, March, this is when you need to be making a huge deal to all of those parents who have thought about leaving or who are leaving about summer 2026. Carrie, it is 40 degrees and colder in some places in this country right now. And, we're excited because today it's 60. And so they're going, I can't even think about summer. I got kids who I have to figure out how to get those mittens on their hands, or heaven forbid, the parent that set the glove with the 2-year-old. What kind of
Oh,
parent
Lord,
gives
what are they
gloves to
thinking?
2-year-olds?
Let's just outlaw gloves until children can write in cursive. You can't have gloves until you can write in cursive. No, thank you.
All right. So you've got right now, you've got kids who have left or thinking about leaving, parents who are thinking about leaving. Maybe last year your summer program was like every other week. It had no real theme. You didn't really do any marketing. If you're a director, even if you're an owner director, right now, this is really, I'm going to talk to the owners, because the owners or the people who are looking at the budget are going, I've just lost all these kids to public pre-K and I'm feeling it in my pocketbook.
Yeah, because now
So
they've had September, October, most of November without those kids, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to handle the budget. You're handling the budget by not losing that same percentage of your pre-K kids to public pre-K next fall. And the only way you can do that is by talking to all of those parents. I don't care if they've ever talked to you about public pre-K. Assume that they all know it exists, because they don't live under a rock. They all know it exists, and you've got to talk to them as if they're considering it. And we don't talk down about what the public school offers. We instead talk up about what we offer. And we say, it's so great that you're able to leave drop your kid off at 7 o'clock in the morning and pick them up at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And the kid doesn't have to try to find a bus or any of that. We love that. And we bring in the soccer shots, and we bring in the gymnastics, and we bring in the whatever types of extracurriculars your parents want that they would be paying for after school care.
absolutely. And we want your programs to have a solid foundation, because if you can't make ends meet because you've got all these kids that left for public pre-K and you're stressed out about losing the next year's batch, join us. We have a free masterclass coming up on 11/25, so November 25th. We're going to have the link for the show notes. This is really for the owners or anybody who's really got concerns about the budget, because we will talk about dollars and cents and profit, because we want to make sure that you guys are having the best summer you possibly can, because 2026, what you need to be doing during the summer is prepping for the school year and fall enrollment. You don't need to be worrying about summer in summer. So we need to be worrying about summer now. So join us for that masterclass so that you can get started before January on summer 2026 profit.
Because you can be doing fall enrollment in January. You can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe me, go talk to the Mother's Day Out program down at your local church, because they do it.
Or
in
your
January.
private school.
Yeah, January, February, they're doing their enrollment for their current families for the fall, so they know before they open to the general public. So if you're not the owner and you're not sure that the owner or the board is on board with this, and you know that they need to be because you guys are really having a little bit of a financial strain, try really hard to get them to come to this masterclass. If you can't, come on your own, take all the notes you possibly can, and we'll give you as much as we can in the masterclass. But I'm telling you, that mastermind will so much turn your finances around, and we have a guarantee with it and all that fun stuff. But come to the masterclass, learn what we can teach you in a little over an hour, and get things handled or get ready to get things handled. We'll at least get your mindset ready. And if you
Absolutely.
can, we'll see you in the mastermind as well. But definitely come
Absolutely.
to the masterclass.
So if you've learned something new today, or at least it maybe got your head thinking, or you're scratching as you got some thoughts going, share it with somebody else who needs to know. Hopefully we've met you at a recent conference. And so you now have expanded, you've networked, you've expanded your network. Share the episode or even the newsletter with somebody else in your organization, or maybe another organization in another state. So we have folks in all 50 states and something like 21 countries who listen to us. So we'd love for it if you shared the show. And don't forget, if you need to, follow us, right? Is that what I did?
It's
I think
follow
I did
or
something.
subscribe depending upon the app. And go in and write us a review. We haven't asked for those in a while, so please go in and write us a review of what you learned in today's show or another episode. And we will see you in a couple of days.
Thanks for tuning in. We love bringing you real talk and fresh insight from the world of early childhood education. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all of the latest episodes. And if you're planning a conference, training, or special event, Kate and Carrie would love to speak to your audience. You can learn more about their keynote sessions and workshops at kateandcarrie.com. If you learned something today, share the show and leave us a review below. We'll see you next time on Childcare Conversations.